Senator Lindsey Graham is one of them, and he might be chairing that committee soon, if, of course, you keep the majority in the Senate.
What's second prize?
I know. Senator Graham, last time I talked to you, there was only one accuser.
Yeah.
Now we got, I think we're up to 5. One's been nixed. 4 has been anonymous, so we toss that out. But the third with Avenatti last night.
Yeah.
What does that change about what we can expect here today, being that she's out speaking on camera and everything else? Before we hear her, just your take from what you know right now.
Well, I think that's the most devastatingly over-the-top, bad accusation that tells me all I need to know. Number one, this lady, I can't remember the lady's name.
Julie Swetnick.
Okay, she wants me to believe that Brett Kavanaugh, when he was a sophomore, junior, maybe early into his senior year in high school, orchestrated mass rapes, drugged women, and she went to not one party where this happened, but 10 parties, never told anybody about it. Why would you go back to the second party if the first experience was women were being drugged and raped? Why wouldn't you tell your girlfriends you don't want to hang around with that crowd? Why did you keep hanging around with that crowd? And here's the thing that seals it for me. Kavanaugh says, I don't even know who she is.
Yeah.
I've never met her.
You asked him.
So I believe him, and I don't believe if you're a serial rapist in high school, you don't give it up. It sticks with you the rest of your life. And every woman who knew him in high school, who actually knew the guy, said, this is ridiculous. He's a good man. So I give this 0 credibility.
And she was college age, going back to high school parties, allegedly. And if there were 10 of them, why didn't anyone at the party, why aren't any of them coming forward? Or why didn't she go to police?
Why would you go? Why would you go back to 10 parties?
True. All right, we're talking about this girl, Julie Swetnick. She is represented by Avenatti. Here she is talking to that Showtime show called The Circus. Listen.
Well, it wasn't that I wanted to come out one day before the hearings. That just circumstances brought it out that way. This is something that occurred a long time ago, and it's not that I just thought about it. It's been on my mind ever since the occurrence. As far as it goes, Brett Kavanaugh is going for a seat where he's going to have that seat on the Supreme Court for the rest of his life. And if he's going to have that seat legitimately, all of these things should be investigated, because from what I experienced firsthand, I don't think he belongs on the Supreme Court. And I just want the facts to come out, and I want it to be just, and I want the American people to have those facts and judge for themselves.
Here's the problem, Senator. We're not saying that nothing, we're not saying, we don't know.
Serious
we're not saying it's serious allegations, something might have happened to her. We are all just questioning why she didn't go to police. She says she was raped at one of these parties, not by Kavanaugh, someone else. So people are wondering, why didn't she go to police when that happened, or why isn't she going to police now?
Yeah. Well, here's what I would say. Y'all are very nice people. I don't buy this. I don't believe any reasonable person would go to a party where people are being drugged and raped and not tell anybody about it, but keep going for 10 times over a 2-year period. Brett Kavanaugh's life, there's no indication that's the kind of person he is. This lady, Brett Kavanaugh, says, I never met her. Avenatti is her attorney. If you can't figure this out, then there's something wrong with you. This makes 0 sense. I've been a lawyer all my adult life. You couldn't get out of the batter's box. It's a 35-year-old accusation. Why didn't she inform her girlfriends and others, don't go to these parties, you will get drugged and raped? And why did she keep going back? She had some obligation, I think, to defend herself and to tell others who were in danger. And Brett Kavanaugh is not a serial rapist. And those who say he is, that's just a lie.
Well, we'll see whether or not her name, Julie Swetnick's name, comes up today.
Right.
Will it?
It certainly will be all about Dr. Christine Ford, and there's a picture of you with Mr. Kavanaugh. What about some of your colleagues, Senator Graham, who have made it very clear, they're from the other side of the aisle, but they've made it very clear that Brett Kavanaugh, while there is generally in the criminal justice system a presumption of innocence, essentially some of your colleagues have said he's got to prove that he's innocent. Listen to this.
His challenge is to persuade us that he has the judicial temperament and the integrity to serve on the Supreme Court. President Trump has other equally credentialed nominees who he could bring forward. Dr. Ford, I'll remind you, has nothing to gain from this and has already suffered significant harm to herself and her family. I think she's come forward with credible allegations, and I do think the challenge now is for us to be persuaded that Judge Kavanaugh has addressed them.
So that's incredible. Is that the way it works?
Well, apparently the way it works with Trump. So we've gone from advise and consent to delay and destroy. Joe Biden, I can't believe I'm saying it, I miss Joe. Here's what Senator Coons is saying. You've been accused of sexual assault 35 years ago. I can't tell you where it happened, and I can't even tell you when it happened, but you got to prove to me it didn't happen. All the people named by the accusers say it didn't happen. She can't tell you the date and time. You couldn't get a warrant based on this allegation. But right. Senator Coons is willing to ruin his life only because he's a Trump nominee. The presumption of innocence is being replaced by the presumption of guilt. Right. The accusation doesn't need to be corroborated. It just needs to be made because they want to destroy Kavanaugh and keep the seat open so they can replace this person in 2020 if they take over the Senate. I hate to say that, but I believe it.
Well, so it does look like a lot of politics to people. Let me ask you this, Mr. Graham. At the end of the day, at 5 o'clock this afternoon, if right. it is a tie, and essentially where, you know, they both seem believable sure. and earnest, what happens in your committee with the vote tomorrow?
I don't know how anybody could look at the entire life of Judge Kavanaugh and destroy it based on an allegation 35 years old that is not specific to time, place, and has no corroboration. Something could have well happened to Ms. Ford, but I want to know when she started talking to the other side. She met with him in July. Why did you go to the Washington Post in July if you wanted to remain anonymous? Why did you hire a lawyer and take a polygraph in August if you didn't think this would come out? I am very much in the camp that Judge Kavanaugh's life rejects these allegations. They're falling apart. They're not credible. He's not a serial rapist. He doesn't have to prove to me that he was not at a party 35 years ago when you can't tell him when it was and where it was. She has to convince me there's credibility to the allegation beyond the allegation. Something could have well happened to her, but there's no evidence it was Brett Kavanaugh.
Senator Graham?
Senator, just real quick. You, the people on the committee, you've been definitive on every show, even as these allegations have rolled out.
Yeah.
But others aren't. Murkowski says, I want an FBI investigation to the New Yorker story, Ramirez story. Yeah. Susan Collins, I'm really disturbed about the third accuser, the one you just minimized. So it's really going to be what Republicans say about the two Republicans. What do you do?
I'm so proud that Judge Kavanaugh did not abandon this quest to be in the highest court. He's highly qualified. He's lived an incredible life. All those who actually know him come to his defense. I would say to my colleagues that the number 3, the Avenatti allegation, Judge Kavanaugh says, I don't know this lady. She went to Gaithersburg High School. I've never met her. You would have to believe that a college student routinely went to parties where high school students, led by Brett Kavanaugh, drugged and raped women, and she did it for 10 times and never told anybody. That is absurd on its face. As to Ms. Ford, she cannot tell us when it happened, where it happened, and the people there say it didn't happen. I would just ask my colleagues not to abandon this man based on allegations that are 35 years old and have no credibility or no corroboration. If we abandon Brett Kavanaugh, we should be abandoned by the Republican Party. Liberal Democrats are trying to destroy this man's life. This is an orchestrated campaign. They set on these accusations to spring them at the last minute. They're falling apart. And I would like to see some Republicans step forward and fight back fairly and firmly. I voted for Sotomayor and Kagan. It's not like I can't vote for people on the other side, but I will not sit on the sidelines and watch standards being used that make no sense, that will destroy the confirmation process for those who come forward. You are presumed innocent. You don't have to prove your innocence. You're not assumed guilty, and the accusation itself has to be proved in any court in the land. If that's not the case in the United States Senate, then we become a cheap political body, and that would be a great loss for the country.
Senator, if you are right and it is political, then why was it easier for Gorsuch to get through and not Kavanaugh? Is it because Kavanaugh will be the swing vote?
Yes. This is the Kennedy seat. This is the sort of the swing vote on the court. Why did they keep the accusation to themselves? It was brought forward in July. Why did they not tell us so we could actually do something? As to an FBI investigation, Joe Biden said it better than I. It's not about finding out what happened. It's about collecting information. When it comes to Ms. Ford, where's the FBI going to go in Maryland? She can't name a town, a house, can't even give you the date. So this is just, there's no magic here. You've got to use your common sense. You've got to go back to the way the system works. Everybody's presumed innocent, and an accusation has to be corroborated. If you'll just keep that as your guide, you'll figure this out.
Sure. Senators, the Democrats are saying that this is a setup. They feel as though 5 minutes is not enough to make any progress with the witness or with Kavanaugh. You guys have hired a prosecutor to do a lot of your questioning. What's your response to that?
If you don't like that setup, then go hire somebody who can do it with continuity. When I hear a Democrat complain about the process, it's like an arsonist complaining about the fire down the street. You're the ones that knew about the accusation. You're the ones that leaked her name to somebody. You're the ones that have been assuming him guilty. You're the ones that created this chaos. When it comes to Trump, you're the ones that want to destroy everything Trump's trying to do. I can look them all in the eye and say, I didn't do this to Sotomayor and Kagan. I would never do this to anybody, regardless of how much I dislike their legal philosophy. I've never been more disappointed in the people on this committee than I am right now, and many of them are my friends.
Yeah, Mr. Graham, what do you make of this story that it apparently broke yesterday, late last night, when your committee released the timeline of all of these allegations, and apparently in the last 48 hours, 2 different men have spoken to your committee, Senate Judiciary, and they've said, essentially, they are admitting that they were involved in an encounter with Dr. Ford, and maybe that's what she is thinking of. A case of mistaken identity, which she says has 0 chance of believability.
Well, you know, I know one of the people that came forward said it was me, not Kavanaugh. We're truly in the twilight zone. That guy's crazy as a loon. I'm not going to mention his name. I'm not looking for somebody to take this burden off my shoulder.
Oh, is that true? The guy who came forward is crazy as a loon?
The one that I've heard about, I think, is not reliable. I'm not looking for somebody to take this burden off my shoulder. I'm not looking to believe the unbelievable. I'm going to use a system that I'm comfortable with. It's called the rule of law, and you could not get a warrant, much less a conviction, based on these allegations. The 4th allegation was an anonymous letter that was reported by NBC News. Here's what I can tell you about NBC News. They would never report an anonymous accusation against a Democratic nominee. Journalistic integrity has been destroyed when it comes to Trump and his nominees. I hope my Republican colleagues can see through this. No reasonable person continues to go to parties where rape and drugs are present. That makes no sense. Brett Kavanaugh is not a serial rapist. Look to his life, and it will give you the answer that you need. He's a good man who's well qualified to be on the court, and he's being savage for political reasons, and I hope the Republican Party will push back, and some Democrats will be fair.
Senator, you hear history repeats itself. In your experience in politics, have you ever, your message to the Generation Xers or to the millennials that haven't witnessed something like this before and are watching our country being just so divided, have you ever seen anything like this? Is it just getting worse, or is this history repeating itself?
This is a low point for me. For young people watching, we need a country based on some standard and rule of law. Everybody's presumed innocent until proven otherwise. An accusation has to be corroborated. It's not about a political outcome here. It's about treating both people fairly. Don't let the process fall apart here. Hang on to concepts that stood the test of time. I know Democrats are trying to undercut President Trump, and we push back against Obama. But if you're an American, you should insist that the Senate make people prove what they're accusing a person of when it's a felony. You need to be respectful, but the presumption of innocence makes us different. The accusation has to be corroborated, because if it's not, then it's just chaos.
Senator, when this ends in 7 or 8 hours, after it gets started today, will there be another day of testimony from other accusers, or is the goal today to wrap everything up and vote tomorrow? And is that possible?
We're going to vote tomorrow. We've offered Mr. Avenatti's client a chance to come in and be interviewed. We did that days ago, and we've had actually, she goes on TV, but she won't come before the committee. The third allegation is the most outrageous, sensational, disgusting allegation. We're going to vote Friday. We're going to listen to Ms. Ford today. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for more detail. I'm sure this is an emotional experience for Kavanaugh and Ms. Ford. Something may well have happened to her, but I can say unless there's more detail about when, where, and you explain why these people say it didn't happen that you claim were there, that I've got nothing more to go on, that I'm ready to go, and I've been real honest about that. I'm looking for something new that can corroborate not just how hard it is, but what actually happened.
All right. Senator Lindsey Graham joined us from our nation's capital. Sir, thank you very much.